Shalom, this is Hadassah Bath Saiwan returning to this wonderful study in the book of Revelation. This is a very intensive and extensive study, and this is chapter 7 according to the reorganization of the chapters and the verses that I've done. Not on my own accord, of course, but how I was directed to do this. Okay? So if you looked at my previous studies, the timeline, the last 7 years of the end times and the beast of the book of Revelation and all the other chapters of this book of Revelation, you'll understand the sequence of events that will be happening, but were scrambled in the Bible for some reason, some mystical reason, some mysterious reason, or order of events have been scrambled, with the exception, of course, the numbered seals, because they can't scramble that. It's numbered from 1 to 7, same thing with the trumpets, and same thing with the vials. But everything else in between, they've scrambled. Okay. So we're going to look at the correct order of events, and the next thing that is on the agenda is the reaping of the southern kingdom, and this will take place after the fourth seal is open, which we know is already open. So what I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to read the chapter, and then we're going to go into looking at the verses and what they mean, because remember, Yawachanan was shown a vision with prophetic imagery. You cannot understand the prophetic imagery because, like parables, it is not given to everyone to understand or to have understanding of the word of Allah. It's not given to you. If you don't understand it, it's because He doesn't want you to understand. But if He wants you to understand, He will allow you to understand through Ruach HaKodesh. All right? Okay, so chapter 7, according to the reorganization of the book of Revelation. Verse 1, and I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the white cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time is come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another angel came out of the temple, which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and cried with a loud voice to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in your sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of Allah. And the winepress was trodden without the city, meaning outside the city. And I will explain the word city later on. And blood came out of the winepress even unto the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. Now this is where the woman comes back into the picture. Verse 8, and when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman who brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of Allah, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, who keep the commandments of Elohim and have the testimony of Yahweh HaMashiach. So let's take a look now at the verses so that we can have a clear idea of what Yochanan saw in the correct order in which it was written previously, before it was messed up, before it was scrambled. All right. Now the fourth seal is open, and the southern kingdom is waiting to be regathered. But there are events that must take place before this happens, and this is the pursuit of the woman, the southern kingdom, by the dragon, which is the latest beast empire. So if you're looking at it from an earthly point of view, he is pointing to an empire, a beast empire. And we know that the current ruling empire is none other than the UN. So until this persecution comes our way, we will remain as prophecy must be fulfilled. So she's not going to be regathered until she faces this persecution. It has to happen. The Father is not going to take us away and not fulfill his prophecy. She's going to have to flee. But there's a purpose for this to happen as well. All right? Because in the face of adversity, in the face of persecution, what will you do? Will you succumb to the persecution? Will you surrender to the persecution? Or will you hold on to Elohim and let him take you away? Even though it may look like you're going to be murdered, even though it looks like you're going to lose your life, are you going to surrender because of fear, or are you going to hold on by faith? Now, this is what is going to perfect our faith, meaning make it complete, because we are holding on to Ha'olah Yawan. We're holding on to his promise. We're holding on to his word. And what did his word say? I will come and rescue you. But many of our people that claim that they love Ha'olah Yawan, they love his commandments, they love everything to do with him, they will become fearful, because those words are just lip service. It's not coming from their heart. And this is how he's going to further sift us to remove the last set of rebels from our midst. So that's why we must be persecuted before we flee. Just like our forefathers. If you think of what happened in Goshen, what caused them to flee? That persecution, that terrible persecution of overworking them and destroying their children. That caused them to want to run from the place. And once and for all, here's another thing that is going to be in our face. Are you willing to let go of the things of the earth, the things that you own on the earth, to hold on to the promise? Are you willing to let go of your livelihood, all your possessions, all your things, your savings, what have you on this earth, to hold on to the promise of Ha'olah Yawan? We will see. We will all be facing this decision. Now, if you don't have anything, well, you don't have anything to lose. So you'll be saying, well, I don't really have anything to begin with. So you know what? I'll let go of what I don't have. But some of our brethren, they have great possessions. Will they want to let go of those great possessions to hold on to a promise? Just like the rich young man. He was doing all the right things. But when Hamashiach said to him, go sell what you have, give it to the poor, come follow me. He couldn't, because he had great possession. All right? So this is what is going to be before us to sift us. This is, when you're sifting flour for, to bake a cake, sometimes people want to sift it several times to get out even the smallest of particles that don't belong there, right? They want to make sure that the flour is the finest flour to make the best cake. Well, the Father is looking for the finest of his wheat, the finest of his people, the ones who have surrendered all for him. And so we must go through this. It's the last step before we're regathered, and we all have to go through it. Okay. We know that Satan and his angels are now roaming the earth. Yes, they were cast down since 2019, maybe even 2020. But between the ending of 2019, and I believe it was with all my heart, it has to be 2019, because that's when the Devok, spell it backwards, appeared on the scene. So that war would have taken place before that pandemic was on the earth, before it took over our lives. All right. So I'm not really thinking 2020. I'm thinking 2019, because he, would be here giving instructions to his minions on what they need to do. All right. 2019. So we know that they're here roaming the earth, and they're blurring all the lines of morality, defiling humanity as much as they can. All you have to do is look around you. Look at all the horrible things that are out there now. There are no more boundaries as far as morality is concerned. It is do as you will. Do what you want to do that makes you happy. If it feels good, do it. All these wicked mantras that they have out there. And they're pushing some of the vilest behaviors that our eyes have never seen before and will not ever want to see ever again. The vilest. And because they have the permission to do it, they're doing it. Now that they have the right people in the right places, in the higher offices in this world, they're doing what they want to do without excuse, because they have the permission now. They're given the authority to do it by Ha'ola Yawan. Go ahead, do it. Because through you, I'm going to sift my people. Now, if we hold on to the commandments of Ha'ola Yawan, if we walk in them, they cannot defile us, because we are guarded by Rawak HaKadash. And this is the reason why Satan wants to come after us more so than any other people on this earth. Because we're the only ones that will not succumb to his threats. And as I have here written, there are two groups of people that they, meaning the Satans and their angels, and their agents, their earthly agents, that they will want to defile or to destroy more than any other people. And that is the southern kingdom first, and then the northern kingdom when they're awakened. They hate us. They hate us for many reasons. But the main reason is because we worship Allah Hayam and we walk in His commandments. We are His chosen people. We're the ones that once we are regathered, they know their time is up. Let's look at verse 1. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the white cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Now this is a vision, a picture, prophetic imagery. He's not going to literally be sitting in the clouds with a sickle to come and reap us. This is to give us an understanding. It's like looking at a picture and you can read a story of 1,000 words. Obviously, the one that sat upon the cloud, the white cloud, is Hamashiach. And in his hand, with the sharp sickle, is giving us the idea of a reaping, a harvesting. So let's read on. What Yochanan saw in his vision was the reaping of the southern kingdom, the spiritual reaping before the actual reaping or regathering. It must first occur in the heavens, meaning in the spiritual realm, before it is manifested here on the earth. And this is kingdom principle. Whatever happens here on the earth has already happened in the spiritual realm. Matthew chapter 16, verse 19. And I will give unto you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, meaning I'm going to give you authority to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. Now this is kingdom principle. So whatever we do here on the earth, according to the command of Ha'olah Yawan, is already done in the heavens. That's why it's present tense on the earth, past tense in the heavens. Same thing with Matthew chapter 18, verse 18. Verily, verily, I say unto you, whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Kingdom principle. Before it occurs here on the earth, before it's manifested physically here on the earth, it must be done in the heavens, in the spiritual realm first. Whatever occurs on the earth has already occurred in the heavens. Nothing can be done by us. And now when I say in the heavens, I'm talking about the spiritual realm, because that's where the heavens are. Nothing can be done by us, the people of Allah Hayam, unless He has given us the authority and the command to do it. When He gives us the command to do it, it is because the spiritual event has already taken place in the heavens. And we, being of the earth, will be used as His servants to speak or do His will, causing the physical manifestation of His word on the earth. Kingdom principle. Even the Son, Hamashiach, does nothing outside of the will of Ha'abba, meaning the Father. And when He was here on the earth, walking in the flesh, He only did the things that His Father told Him to do, or He only spoke the things that His Father told Him to speak, because He first witnessed them being done in the heavens. Yochanan chapter 5, verse 19. Then answered Yahawasha'o and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees Ha'abba do. For what things soever he does, these also does the Son likewise. So whatever he have seen his Father do in the heavenly realm, and whatever he heard in the heavenly realm, then he will manifest it here. He manifested it here on the earth. He spoke it or he did it on the earth. He did nothing of his own accord. That's why he spent so much time in prayer. That's why we need to spend more time in prayer, so that we can see and hear what the Father, how Abba is saying or doing, and then likewise, when we are commanded to do it, we would not have any fear, only faith to do it, because we've seen it done, or we've heard him speak it. Yochanan chapter 6 verse 38, for I came down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him that sent me. So Hamashiach, he listened to his Father to do the Father's will. Likewise, he wants us to follow that same pattern. Now, same Yochanan chapter 8 verse 28, then said Yahawasha'o unto them, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then shall you know that I am he, and that I do nothing of myself. But as my Abba has taught me, I speak these things. So he received all the instruction from his Father first, from her Abba first. And then he will do those things. Then he did those things. Just as the son of Allah Hayam can do only that which is commanded of him to do of his Abba, so the same goes for us when the son of Allah Hayam is Hamashiach. Even his return is given to him, and not of his own accord, but by Ha-Abba. All the sequence of the end times events are within the control of Allah Hayam Yahweh. And all of these events are in his hand to usher them forth at his appointed time. He has an appointed time for all of the events, past, present, and future, all within his hand. Nothing can occur before its time. All will fall into place because he sent his word in the form of prophecy through his prophets, which will not return to him void. So every word that he spoke through his prophets must be fulfilled in their appointed season. Mark chapter 13 verse 32. But of that day and that hour knows no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but Ha-Abba. So not even the Son knows when he is returning to regather his people. That's what this scripture is referring to. It's not about the second coming of Hamashiach. He's talking about when he is coming to regather his people. Take you heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the time is. This is the reason why he's telling us to watch and pray. Because the southern kingdom, remember, this is the southern kingdom that he's speaking to. Then and now. And when he tells us to take heed, to watch and pray, for you don't know when the time is, when he is returning to regather us, that is the day or the hour that he himself doesn't know. That's why Yochanan saw him in the clouds with the sickle. And it was the angel that spoke to him, because the angel came out from Yahweh Alahayam with the command to speak to the sun, to say it is time to reap the earth. All right? This was Hamashiach warning his disciples and us today. to be watchful and in prayer, for the time of the end will come upon some of us unawares. Meaning, you're too caught up in this life, working and paying your bills and doing all the different external things that you think are important. But you're not paying attention to the signs that are around you, that He has made them visible for us to see, to know that we are in the season soon to be regathered. We don't need to know the day nor the hour. We just need to know the season. And as we continue to watch the events that are occurring around us in this wicked world, we will know that the time is at our door. All right? We need to pay attention. We need to forget about living in this world, this life that we have or had. Forget about that career that you want to have, or that promotion, or going to university, or doing all these different external things to try to better yourself. The only way to better yourself is to delve into the word of Allah and let Him better you, to prepare you for His kingdom. This is what it's going to come down to. You're not going to be celebrated, endorsed by Ruach HaKodesh for having a wonderful life here on this earth. No, you're not. HaMashiach was sent by Abba on his cloud of glory and power to regather his southern kingdom from the four corners of the earth. His regathering was compared to harvesting, as affirmed by the sickle which he had. So that's what we are supposed to see. It's a harvest time. The only time a sickle is in the hand of a farmer is when he's ready to reap or to harvest his crop. Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And He shall send His angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together His elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other, meaning the four corners of the earth, from far and wide. He's going to regather His people wherever we are scattered. Acts chapter 1 verse 9. And when He, HaMashiach, had spoken these things, while they beheld, He was taken up, and a cloud received Him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as He went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, who also said, You men of Galilee, why stand you gazing up into heaven? The same Yahweh who is taken from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as you have seen Him go into heaven. So as you see Him received by the cloud, He is coming again in the cloud to regather us. This is not the second coming. The second coming, He's coming on a white horse with His saints. This is Him coming to harvest the earth of His southern kingdom. Mark chapter 14 verse 61. But He held His peace and answered nothing. Again the high priest asked Him and said unto Him, Are you HaMashiach, the Son of the Blessed? And Yahweh said, I am. And you shall see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds. So just like we saw the woman with the man-child who was caught up to sit on the right hand of Ha'aba. Here, Hamashiach himself is saying to you, this is what he is going to do. And he is coming in the clouds. He is letting the southern kingdom know in more places than one that he is returning to regather them. And the way how we know is when we look up and we see him in the clouds, he is coming for us. So get ready. Before Hamashiach comes in the clouds, the sun and the moon will be darkened. It will be a dark day for many people, but for the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom, it will be a time of elation, a time of celebration, for we are going home. What we've been waiting for all this time. The sickle is showing us how Allah Hayam view us as his people. Sometimes he refers to us as the sheep of his pasture, or his grapes, or his wheat. All right? But the opposite of these elements, instead of sheep, you have the goats. Those are the rebels. Instead of grapes that were grown in a vineyard, pruned and prepared by him, you have the wild grapes. And how can you tell wild grapes from regular grapes? They're smaller and they're not as tasty. So you have the wild grapes in comparison to the regular grapes, and that's the wild grapes are the rebels, the ones that want to do things their own way. And then you have the opposite of wheat. We have the tares. Tares look a lot like wheat while they're growing up, but once they're ripened, they're black, whereas the wheat has a golden color. All right, those are the rebels. The tares are the rebels. And then we have the chaff, which comes from the wheat when it's being sifted. And the chaff is the part that burns with the fire. The wheat falls to the ground, but the chaff is blown away by the wind. And that's why when they're sifting the wheat to separate the chaff from the wheat, they will toss it up in the air and on a windy day and let the wind do its job. When Hamashiach gathers his righteous remnant, it will be like reaping wheat or grapes. That's why he has a sickle. These ones he will keep in his barn or his kingdom. Whereas the angel will gather the wild grapes or the tares or chaff for the eternal fire. Well, the wild grapes will go into the winepress of the wrath of Allah Hayam. But the tares or the chaff, and it's all the same thing. Still the wrath of Allah Hayam. Whether it's the winepress or the eternal fire, still all ending up in damnation. Verse 2 of Revelation chapter 7. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time is come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. He regathered his righteous remnant of the southern kingdom. Matthew chapter 9 verse 36. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. That's how he always look at us, as sheep. He is the good shepherd. Verse 37. Then said he unto his disciples, the harvest. Now he's comparing us to another element. The harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray you therefore Yahweh of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. So here he's comparing us now to a harvest. Mark chapter 4 verse 26. And he said, so is the kingdom of Allah Hayam, as if a man should cast seed into the ground, and should sleep and rise night and day, and the seed should spring up and grow up, he knows not how. For the earth brings forth fruit of herself, first the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. Now this is wheat, by the way, not corn on the cob. But when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he puts in the sickle because the harvest is come. So a farmer knows when it's time to harvest based on the fruit of the field that he's planted. Now, there was another study that I've done, and I was referring to the earth having a life of its own. And that's why the earth must be purged from all the evil that has been done on it, all the blood that's been shed on it, especially in our land, the land of Yashua. And this was the point that I was making in that video, this verse 28. The earth brings forth fruit of herself. First the blade, then the ear, and after that the full corn of the ear. Because of the nutrients in the soil, it's a life in the soil that helps to bring forth the seed, that helps the seed to germinate. And not only germinate, but it helps to feed the seedling to become a plant, whether a tree or a bush, to bear fruit. It all starts with the soil, the earth. It is so important that we do not defile the earth. That's why he said, he told our forefathers, if you kill an animal to eat, that is, and there's blood that is on the ground, cover it. Cover the blood. There's life in the blood, and there's also life in the earth. You cover it. That's showing respect. We were taken from the earth. And when we die, we return to the earth. So here he's saying this farmer, he doesn't know how the crops that he has planted grow up, but he knows that they do. And he also knows when they're ripened. And when they're ripened, then it's time to put the sickle in to harvest. Matthew chapter 3, verse 12, whose fan is in his hand, speaking of Hamashiach. This is Yochanan the baptizer, John the baptizer, speaking of Hamashiach, whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor and gather his wheat into the garner, meaning his barn, but he will burn up the chaff with unquenchable fire. So the Father is going to purge his people. Has to start with us. Once we are dealt with, then he will turn his attention to the Gentiles on this earth. The fan is a tool to separate the wheat from the chaff, which will help to purge out the rebels from his righteous remnant. We are taught that this had to do with the separation of the righteous from the Gentile nations. Not so. He's dealing with us as separate peoples. The southern kingdom by themselves, the northern kingdom by themselves, then he's going to deal with the Gentiles. We are taught that this has to do with the separation of the righteous from the Gentile nations, when in fact it has to do with the separation of the righteous and the rebels of the southern kingdom. Now this will occur when he comes in the clouds with his sickle. Therefore those that remain on the earth after the righteous remnant is regathered will perish. So if you don't make it into the chariots, you're done. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, and myself the benefit of the doubt, before I received this revelation. You might hear it in other studies that I've done, that if you Realize that you were wrong because a remnant was regathered from the earth in the chariots, and you're left here to repent. Do an about turn. You're still going to die, but at least die in righteousness. But what was revealed to me by Ruach HaKodesh is if they don't repent now, they are not going to repent afterwards. No, they're not. Because your heart isn't suddenly going to turn from being stony to a heart of flesh. It takes work. You're not going to be repentant of your evil deeds after the fact because of the state of your heart. You think that you're right. You're full of pride. How is that going to be removed by just looking and seeing what is taking place in the sky? The regathering of the southern kingdom. Your heart will be hardened even further. You will be in denial. Especially when the wicked comes out and say, well, you know what? Those are the wicked ones that were taken away. You that remain, you're the good guys. Those were aliens that took them away. Aren't they planting the seed of UFOs in the skies recently? In the last few months, last year or so? Maybe even a little bit longer? Suddenly now, tinfoil hats. They were right all along. They're UFOs. We know there are no such things as UFOs. They're all their secret airplanes, secret spacecrafts. Well, there's no space, but crafts. They're unidentified flying objects, in other words. Things that our eyes have never seen before. Might have seen them in sci-fi movies, but with our own eyes, we've not seen the things, the technology that these people have. So that's why I'm saying, if you don't make it out in the chariots, you're doomed for destruction. And I'm going to show you more proof as we go along. Verse 4, and another angel came out of the temple, which is in the heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and cried with a loud voice to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, thrust in your sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of Elohim. And the winepress was trodden down without, that means outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,600 furlongs. We know that the southern kingdom is compared to grapes, but only the righteous ones. The rebels are compared to wild grapes, and these are the ones that will be harvested by the angel having the sharp sickle. These are the grapes that he was told to gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, because it's time to get rid of them now. He's not going to leave us behind. None of us he's going to leave behind. Either you're regathered into his kingdom or you're destroyed. Yasha'oyah, the book of Isaiah, chapter 5, chapter 5, verse 1. Now will I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard in a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it, and gathered out the stones thereof, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein. And he looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes. And now, O inhabitants of Yerushalayim and men of Yahawada, I pray you between me and my vineyard, verse 4, he's identifying, because he's using allegory to compare us to grapes. And who is he speaking to? Yarawashalam, which speaks of Lawai, the tribe of Lawai, and the men of Yahawada, speaking of Judah. And of course Benjamin, because Benjamin, Benaiah, Mayam, is always attached to Yahawada. So this is the southern kingdom that he's speaking to, telling them, like, I came in your midst, I planted my tabernacle, all the things that I've done to ensure that you will grow up and become grapes. But instead, what have you become? Sour grapes, wild grapes. He said, I pray you, between me and my vineyard. What could have been done more to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Wherefore, when I looked that it should bring forth grapes, nice, plush, sweet, juicy grapes, but instead it brought forth wild grapes, those tiny little sour things. So we know now that the angel is reaping wild grapes, the rebels. Hamashiach, he gathered his grapes, and the angel gathered the wild grapes. Prophecy becomes clearer and clearer as we delve deeper and deeper into scriptures to see the plans and purpose of Allah Hayam when the revelation comes from his Rawak. Hamashiach said, if you have ears to hear, let him hear. Yahweh is speaking to us today through his Rawak Kadash. The regathering of his people means final judgment for all 12 tribes, either eternal life or eternal damnation. Not one of our people will be left behind to try to make it through the coming judgments on the world. So starting with the southern kingdom first, when we are harvested, when we are regathered, those that don't make it into the chariots, they will be destroyed. Same thing will go for the northern kingdom. When it's time for them to set out on their second exodus, those that want to remain behind, they'll be destroyed. Even though there will be a few rebels amongst them, he'll purge them out one way or the other. And we know how that's going to happen. Once they start seeing those trumpet judgments happening all around them, those ones that are weak in their faith or have no faith, they're just going to run away to try to preserve themselves. And those ones are going to be destroyed. Matthew chapter 13, verse 37. He answered and said unto them, he that sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is in the world. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. So this was the parable of the wheat and the tares. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity. Those are the wicked ones, the rebels, the stiff-necked ones, the ones that want to have multiple wives, the ones that want to eat their cake and have it too. They want to eat unclean things, don't want to keep Shabbat, don't want to keep the commandments or all of the commandments, only the ones that favor their lifestyle. The rebels. Verse 42. And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. That's hell. That's in the lake of fire. Eternal damnation. And this is not the Gentiles. These are the brethren, even the ones that claim they are awakened, but still living like Gentiles, calling on pagan gods to be their gods. That's who he is speaking about. It's one thing when you're not awakened to the truth, but when you claim that you're awakened to the truth and you're still walking in your pagan ways, that's another story. That will not end well for you. It will not have a happy ending. Verse 43, and you can't say that you don't know or you didn't know, because the scriptures are there. And Ruach HaKodesh is there. He is ready and willing to reveal all of his truth to his people. But if your heart is not ready to receive, or if you're rejecting HaMashiach, or you're trying to live on both sides of the fence, in the world and out of the world, pretending that you're righteous, pretending that you are in the know and you're doing all the right things, but behind closed doors, you're living like a harlot, he will have nothing to do with you. And that's why you are still where you are today. Because Ruach HaKodesh, he is not bringing revelation to you that your lifestyle reeks like menstruous cloth. Your lifestyle is left to be desired. He wants nothing to do with you. And that's the worst place to be in. When he doesn't want anything more to do with you. When he has removed himself far away from you, and you're still carrying on as if you are in the know, as if you're walking the straight and narrow path, when in fact you're on the broad way. And to make matters worse, you're dragging down more people with you. You're not even going on your own, but you're bringing people along with you. And leading people on this broad way, giving them permission to live in sin, to live like harlots. So it's going to be even worse punishment for you. And there's no excuse for stupidity. There's no excuse for ignorance. Because the truth is there for us to receive it. He sent his spirit of truth, Ruach Ol Amath, so that his people can learn the truth, can know the truth, and be set free from the lies and deception. So there's no excuse. When we go before the Father, we can't say, well, we didn't know. Nobody told us. Well, Ruach HaKodesh was there. Why did you not receive him? Because your hearts were hardened. They were calloused. You want to live a rancid lifestyle. You want to live like a harlot. So he wants nothing to do with you because you're an unclean creature. He only comes when the vessel is clean. The vessel has to be clean for Ruach HaKodesh to want to come and dwell in it. But if you're unclean, he's not going to come and dwell in you. And you're free to do whatever you want to do. That's why they do what they want to do. And they don't feel the condemnation. They don't feel the conviction because Ruach HaKodesh is not there. He's allowing them to enjoy their evils for the day. Because he knows at the end of the day, they will perish. Enjoy it while you can. Verse 43. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Abba. Who has ears to hear, let him hear. Meaning, when you hear him say things like that, who has ears to hear, let him hear. Meaning, this is a spiritual revelation here. You can only you can only receive the understanding when you have spiritual ears. Because it is Ruach HaKodesh who speaks revelation to our hearts so that we will understand. So if you don't have ears to hear, what Rawak is saying, then you're going to be deaf, blind, and dumb. And you will perish. So it's not given for all to have ears to hear. Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 27. When I have brought them again from the people and gathered them out of their enemies' lands, and am sanctified in them in the sight of many nations, then shall they know that I am Yahweh Alahayak, their Alahayam, who has caused them to be led into captivity among the heathen. But I have gathered them into their own land and have left none of them anymore there. He has gathered them into their own land and left none of them anymore there, meaning in the place, the lands of their captivity. Neither will I hide my face anymore from them, for I have poured out my Rawak, my spirit, upon the house of Yashraal, said Yahweh Alahayam. So I want to make a correction here, verse 28. I am Yahweh, their Alahayam. That should have been their Alahayam and not your Alahayam. Alahayak means your Alahayam. It should have read, I am Yahweh, their Alahayam. So we know when he speaks of the house of Yashraal, he's not speaking about the 12 tribes, he's speaking of the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom is called either the house of Yashraal, the whole house of Yashraal, or the daughters of Yashraal. Although the scripture from Ezekiel is meant for the northern kingdom, the southern kingdom can still glean wisdom from this prophecy. It still pertains to us. He's still saying, I'm not going to leave any of you behind. Once I come to purge my floor, I'm going to do it thoroughly and thoroughly. I'm not going to take out just the good and leave the evil. I am going to take out the good and destroy the evil. Clean out my floor. None will remain of our people, as our judgment will be completed once we are regathered. There will be no stragglers. No one will be left behind. And that goes for the northern kingdom as well. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 17. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of Alahayam. And if it first begins with us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of Alahayam? So the house of Alahayam is us. Speaking of us, we must be judged, and we are being judged first. Verse 18, and if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the unrighteous and the sinner appear? Wherefore let them that suffer according to the will of Alahayam commit the keeping of their souls to him in well-doing, as unto a faithful Creator. You have chance now, an opportunity now, to repent of your ways, of your evil ways, and turn away from all unrighteousness. You have the opportunity right here, right now, to make the amends and to walk in righteousness and in holiness. Tomorrow is not given to us, only today. The angel that thrust in his sickle to reap the grapes will be reaping the rebels that were amongst us, that will be amongst us, will be amongst us, our brethren, that is. It is a sobering thought that if we do not make it out, when we're called out, then we will perish. We will perish. And this is according to the scriptures mentioned earlier, and many more scriptures that speak about the separation of the righteous from the rebels, the sheep from the goats, the wheat from the tares, the grapes from the wild grapes, and the wheat from the chaff. There are only two groups. One will be saved, and enter into the kingdom of Al-Hayam to have eternal life, while the other one will not be saved and be condemned to have eternal damnation. Now, kingdom of heaven is reserved for the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom will make it into their land, the righteous remnant. Only the redeemed will walk that highway, the way of righteousness, all the way to our land. Verse 6 of Revelation chapter 7. And the angel thrust in his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of Al-Hayam. Does that sound like that's anything great and wonderful? That word wrath means anger, fury. We have the Christians preaching that this is the harvest of the Christians, of the church. Well, they're not quite wrong though. But this has nothing to do with Gentiles. Yes, they will face the wrath of Al-Hayam when he turns to them. But this angel thrusting in his sickle to the earth and harvesting the wild grapes are the rebels of the southern kingdom that will face the wrath of Al-Hayam. Verse 7, and the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress even unto the horses' bridles by the space of 1,600 furlongs. To be cast into the winepress of the wrath of Al-Hayam is speaking of being destroyed, where blood will be shed. This is not a good place. This is destruction. The judgment of our unrighteous brethren will occur nowhere near his righteous people. The word city is an allegory denoting his true worshippers, speaking of the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom and also the northern kingdom as well. So when he brings judgment against these rebels, it will be nowhere near us. That's why for the southern kingdom, we are regathered first. And then those that are left behind, he will destroy. And their blood will be flowing. The northern kingdom is a different story altogether because they'll still be on the earth. And they'll be making their way into the wilderness, which is not really a wilderness. Please see my other studies about this. The land before them will be like the Garden of Odan, meaning the Garden of Eden. It will not be the Garden of Eden, but it will be like the Garden of Eden. But for that to happen, all the rebels have to be purged out first. So that's why he will allow the northern kingdom, when they start their second exodus, to go through some things, some difficulties, to see what is in them. This is his way to prove them, to prove whether or not they're going to obey and walk in his commandments. And knowing people to have weak faith or no faith, once they start seeing the hardships, which isn't really going to be a lot of hardship, and it's not going to be long-lived, but once they start seeing the trumpet judgments happening around them, they're going to want to run for the hills. They're going to want to go find some place to hide, to preserve themselves. That's how he's going to be able to extract the rebels from amongst the northern kingdom. They have to go through these judgments for this to happen. Just like the southern kingdom, when she's going to be persecuted before she's regathered. It's the final sifting. And that's why the winepress will be trodden outside the city, which will be his righteous remnant. It will not happen in their midst. Now the judgment of our rebellious brethren will be passed and their punishment carried out away from the righteous remnant of both the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Now, he also wants us to understand is that there will be a lot of our brethren from both kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, that will perish. That's why only a remnant will be saved. Because he will destroy them. He will destroy those rebels. And there are going to be many of our brethren that will not make it. That's why he gives us this measurement. The 1,600, the 1,600 furlongs is about 200 miles. Yet we're given a depth to which indicates to us that many, many, many of our people will die to accomplish this judgment. Therefore, it is 200 miles long by a depth measured by the horse's bridle, which is the height of the horse's mouth. Because you know the bridle was through the horse's mouth. But he didn't even give us the width. He gave us the length, and he gave us the depth. So that means there's going to be a lot of blood being shed. This is just to express to us that the majority of our brethren are going to perish. He's going to destroy them. Yeshaiah chapter 62 verse 11. Behold, Yahweh has proclaimed unto the end of the world. Say you to the daughter of Sion, behold, your salvation comes. Daughter of Sion is speaking of the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom. Behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him. And they shall call them the holy people, the redeemed of Yahweh, and you shall be called sought out, a city not forsaken. So here he is referring to his people as a city. The redeemed, righteous remnant of the southern kingdom, he's referring to as a city. Same thing with the northern kingdom. We're like a city to him. A city of worshipers, a group of worshipers that becomes like a city to him. It is his prophetic imagery that he puts out there, but unless you have ears to hear, you're not going to understand these allegories that he gives us, this prophetic imagery that he shows us. Now this will be the spiritual manifestation of the regathering of the southern kingdom, and the earthly manifestation will occur in its appointed time. Verse 8. Now we're moving on back to the woman, because now this is the earthly manifestation of what was already happening in the heavens with the son of Alahayam, the son of man, with his crown and his sickle in the clouds. So now we're going to see it happening on the earth, and that's why these two belong together. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman who brought forth the man-child. This is the southern kingdom. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness and into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of Alahayam, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now we know, according to the study, the last 7 years of the end times, that the woman will be persecuted by the reigning empire called the UN. 30 days after this persecution begins will mark the day that the southern kingdom, the woman, will be regathered through divine intervention, hence the eagle's wings. The wilderness that she'll be taken to is called the kingdom of heaven, or Alahayam, and she will be taken there by the chariots of Alahayam, which are also called the chariots of Yasha'al. And I did a study called The Chariots of Yasha'al, which goes into detail about the southern kingdom being regathered by the chariots. The kingdom of heaven is in third heaven, and its other name is Hagan ol Adan, meaning the Garden of Eden. The southern kingdom will remain there for the full 7 years and not 3.5 years, as we are led to believe. I told you they scrambled our verses and even some of the chapters so that we will get it wrong. A time times and half a time is the same amount of time as 1,260 days, which amounts to 3.5 years. It makes no sense on any level to believe that Allah Hayam will return the southern kingdom to the earth before the judgments on the earth are completed. When the southern kingdom is taken up, he will be focusing on the northern kingdom to regather them into our land, which is Yashra'al. It will serve no purpose to return the southern kingdom halfway through the 7 years, except for them to return with Hamashiach for his millennial reign. And we know that will occur at the ending of the last 7 years, the 7th year, which when you look at my study, the last 7 years of the end times, we know that lines up perfectly with the 6,000th year of the earth, the 400-year prophecy that was given to Abraham. All right? So we will return with Hamashiach. We're the saints that will be coming on white horses. And that's not going to happen midway through the judgments. It will be happening at the ending when they're all completed. So you see why you have to be so careful when you're studying prophecy, because they have scrambled or taken out or added in things. We need Ruach HaKodesh to make it make sense. It has to make logical, and I'm speaking on spiritual level, it has to make sense. But some people are going to the book of Revelation and going at it chapter to chapter, verse by verse, and they're all over the place. You're going to be all over the place. It will not make any sense. Will not. And that's why they have to turn to astronomy and all these different external books or theology or what have you to explain what is right before us. All right. The wilderness will be like the wilderness of Joel chapter 2. We know that the wilderness of Joel chapter 2 speaks of the garden of Odan. It's going to be like the garden of Odan that will be before the northern kingdom when they leave on their second exodus. So it will be like the wilderness of Joel chapter 2 for the southern kingdom. We know when they look behind them, they will see the desolate wilderness, but before them, the land will be like the garden of Odan. So this is the same thing for us. A place that is fruitful, beautiful, uninhabited, and uncorrupted by human hands. That's what they call a wilderness. Therefore, what one man calls a wilderness